So in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about how I started 7 businesses in the last 12 years, and not all of them succeeded. There were a lot of failures and what I learned from the failures, and then ultimately how I became successful. But I'm going to be sharing with you this 12 years of experience in starting companies and then failing and struggling and then ultimately accomplishing success. These were in several industries. I'm going to be talking about that. But before we jump into that, if you're new to the channel, let me introduce myself. My name is Prithvi Chauhan, and I'm the founder of a healthcare investment group that's based in UAE. And in the last few years, at the age of 29, I'm 29 right now as of this video, I have structured partnership with billion-dollar CEOs, some of the top international lawyers which are based in UAE. I've negotiated with billion-dollar companies, including banks, major banks, Citibank, HSBC Bank, and several banks in UAE. And I've also negotiated with publicly listed billion-dollar healthcare companies. And I was the lead on the negotiation. I wasn't sitting on the side taking notes. I was the founder and I was leading the negotiations. And I'm also the major shareholder of my company, along with 7 other shareholders, all of them above 50 years old, and all of them very high-profile senior executives in UAE. So how did I come to this position? And I started off my journey as a college dropout, where my mom was making $1,500 a month, and I was living in India, and then I moved to Dubai. And the whole process of that, how did it happen? And in the process, I started around 7 businesses, and a lot of them failed. So I'm going to be sharing my lessons with you one by one. So my first business was at the age of 17, when I was in 12th grade, and it was actually 18. I'm sorry. It was at the age of 18. I was in 12th grade, and me and my friend came up with an idea of making about $5,000 by getting into the seminar business. So I recently had discovered the power of your mind, that you visualize, you set goals, and you can accomplish them over time, over a period of your life. And we decided that, okay, we are 18-year-olds, so we can structure the seminar around young people, because the older guys won't listen to us. Let's, structure it around young people. We will spread the word, we'll make the phone calls, and we'll fill up a hall, and we'll do a seminar. And I was going to be the one leading the seminar. And by that time, I had done several self-development programs. I had already raised some capital to donate it to charity. I had that little accomplishment after doing a seminar, and I was on fire. And I was like, I'm going to teach this stuff. I'm going to make a difference. And this is my project. So I called up one of my friends. He was already sold on me. So I raised $1,000 from him, got myself a nice suit, and booked a hall, and then started making the phone calls. So we're going to do the seminar after a month. And this 30 days, we would do a promotion. And we paid, I think, about $800 for the hall. We booked a hall. It was YMCA. And I made the calls, and it was a room of 200 people. So I really thought about in my mind, I'm going to fill a room of 200 people within 30 days. And I was very excited. I made the phone calls, and I was drinking, I was partying, I was making the phone call. I was even drinking while making the phone calls, and I was on fire, and I would do these pitches and presentations. And at the end of it, when the seminar day came, I arrived late, and my brother was telling me that this is not going to work, this is not going to work. My friends were telling me this is not going to work, this is not going to work. And I arrived at the seminar late, 30 minutes late to my own seminar. And a night before, I was partying, and I entered there, and there were 7 people showed up, and they came with money, and they were my friends. So I saw the whole hall was empty, and the guy, the organizer of the hall, who was supposed to be controlling the sound, who I had paid for, had played a Bollywood song in the hall. and it was a complete mess. The quality was not what I wanted it to be. The quality was not of the seminar that I attended, which were given by extremely experienced individuals. And I felt so ashamed that I invited my friends to this. I raised capital for this, and I started to cry like anything in front of my friends who were the participants. So I returned the money to them, and I just kept crying, and I just felt so ashamed. And my brother was telling me, it's okay, it's all right. Nobody said anything to me. And then I went back and I started to drink even more. And few of my friends came to my house and started to tell me, I just told you this is not going to work. The skeptic. So he even was like rubbing on my face. But I learned something. I learned a lot of things from that experience. And I realized that I wasn't sincere enough. I was drinking the night before. I am surrounded by a lot of people who are actually dragging me into the party life, and I'm dragging them into the party life. And I just have too many bad habits. My personal foundation is not strong enough. And I had something that I wanted to share, but I didn't know how to sell it. I didn't know how to market it. And like, I was doing these one-on-one sales, which was so difficult and like so tedious, and I was completely exhausted. I was traveling to do, door-to-door sales. And I even had, printed pamphlets, which I didn't even distribute. So there was a lot of work ethic problem there that I got exposed to and I had to confront. And so I was like, I got to get rid of cigarettes and alcohol from my life. So that was lesson number one. And the second one was I need to learn about sales and marketing. And third one was that I need to work on the quality of what I want to offer. Until I don't have quality, I should not open my mouth. And for the next almost like 5-7 years, I didn't even open my mouth to share. And if I don't have something of quality, I shouldn't charge money for it. And if I don't know what I'm doing, I shouldn't raise money. So, I was completely frozen. And I was like, this is the time to learn. And not teach, but learn. So I became humble. And then I attended a series of yoga programs. I got trained for about 5 to 7 years. And it changed my life. I stopped drinking. I stopped smoking. I was doing 3 to 5 hours of yoga every single day for about 8 years. And I really built up this discipline. And I got rid of my friends and I became laser beam focused. And I was like, this yoga thing really helped me. Maybe I should be a teacher and offer this instead of what I was going to offer, which was around goal setting. And I did a 5-month training, 1,750 hours of training. I paid $10,000 for it. I went crazy. I was doing 8 to 10 hours of yoga every single day as a part of the training. Got trained in Isha Foundation. This is an organization headed by Sadhguru. If you know who Sadhguru is, Google him. He's a pretty famous guy. So I did the teacher's training with him. Very, very intense. You have to go through an interview process to get selected. I became a yoga teacher. I went through this journey, and there is one interview online also lingering somewhere. You can watch it. Maybe I'll share it one day just as a proof. And so I did the training. I came back in 2015. Now a couple of years had passed since the time I did the seminar. And I was like, I'm going to change the world with yoga. And once again, I'm back on door-to-door sales. And even though I have something really of value to sell, I'm selling sand in the desert because I'm trying to sell yoga in India. And I'm trying to bring yoga to people in India. And sharing yoga in India is like selling sand in the desert. Every street corner has a yoga place, a yoga studio where you can learn yoga for like $20. Once again, there was a marketing problem. There were not enough people. I put $1,000 in and I got $1,000 back. And I didn't get my $10,000 from the training, but I got something out of the $10,000 investment. I was a changed man, and I had this stoic sense of discipline and commitment. So I got that, at least I got that, which I didn't have. So first business, problem, marketing, and sales. I didn't know how to do it. not enough customers, right? So that's related to marketing and sales. And habits, bad habits and bad environment. Second business, environment was gone, but again, marketing and sales in too high of a competition. I was like, okay, I can't build a business in yoga. And by this time I had already quit college. So I started to work with my brother a little bit, and I was like, I can work with him and shadow him and travel the world and, learn to meet women. I had started to get into dating niche, and I was like, I'm going to invest myself, and this is a valuable skill that I can learn for myself. I had no plan on teaching. I had no plan of teaching it, but this is something I wanted to build as a skill to meet women. And I started to travel the world with him, started to, invest my skill in that. And I had this principle that I'm only going to offer something that is extremely valuable. Otherwise, I don't feel comfortable asking for money because of the experience that I had. So I started to work on that. And then I got into the third business, which was with my brother around the casino industry. And this was something called as a junket. There is something called as a junket, which is you bring players to the casino, whatever they lose, you have some shares in that. You have some shares in their losing. So me and my brother, we did some meetings, and nothing was in my control because it was my brother's idea and I was a minor shareholder and I was shadowing him, and I would just sit there looking at the fan in a meeting, and he would do all the negotiation because he had all the power. And eventually one day he just said, this is not going to work out. He spoke to one of his competitors out of all the people, and the competitor said that, oh, this is not going to work out. And he just accepted it. So he asked advice from the competitor whether this is going to work or not. And obviously the competitor said, oh, this is not going to work. And eventually he said, forget about it, drop it. And I had wasted a good few months on that project. So the lesson with this business I realized was that never be a minority shareholder in anything. Never get involved in anything you don't have complete control. Because if somebody has all the control, you're just shadowing the person and everything depends on this person. And it's extremely frustrating to be in the meetings where you don't have any power and you're kind of lost and you feel non-productive. So that business was gone. Then the fourth business was the blender. I started dating this girl and I started to build this, e-commerce. There was a lot of e-commerce buzz. So I was like, okay, I'm going to teach myself marketing. I'm going to do a bunch of courses on marketing. I'm going to start getting into e-commerce. And this is the time where I was doing a lot of seminars. I had already done about 15, 20 courses. I was a different man. I had the discipline. I had knowledge. I had skills. I was also good at dating, but I wanted to get into e-commerce. And my first goal was to make $3 million with e-commerce. I set up a website and even run Facebook ads, lost a bunch of money. And then I was doing a leadership seminar. And that's another thing I realized in my first business is that I don't have leadership skills. I didn't have the environment in control. This guy is playing Bollywood music in my seminar. I mean, I had no control over the situation. So I was like, I need to learn leadership skills. So I was doing a 1-year-long leadership program with an organization called Landmark Forum. And one of my coaches there told me that, why do you want to get into this business of e-commerce? And I said, so that I can live a happy life with my girlfriend. And he's like, Prithvi, but nobody cares about that. That's not why you start a company. So I was like, so what do you mean? They said, what is that company going to do for the people? You got to communicate from that standpoint. Like, you don't have sincerity in your product. I mean, this thing is just going to benefit you. And people are not going to buy if it doesn't benefit them. And I was like, that's right. I opened my website and it was all about me. Me. I was running my little me show. So I was like, that's right. I should talk about what it could do for people. Anyway, that business was also a failure. I lost exactly $1,000, ironically. And I run Facebook ads and no traffic. And I had payment problems. My site wasn't working and I didn't do the numbers properly. and I didn't have financial education. When that business failed, I was like, hold on, get more skills. I learned everything about marketing. I did some more courses of business. And this time I was like, I'm going to teach dating. I'm going to give dating advice. I've been invested around. I have actually been learning about dating since the age of 17. I read the book, The Game, and then I did a bunch of programs much later on, and I was practicing. And I didn't practice it for the first 5 years, from 17 until 22. But after 22, I really pushed it. I mean, every single day I was talking to 10 women in bars, clubs. I would go and start having conversations, and I developed a skill in that. And then I was like, this is something I can offer. And I had a client from South India, and he signed up right away. And he paid me money. He paid me some amount. It was a small amount of money for one-on-one coaching. I started to do that, and this guy started to get results. This guy wasn't good looking. We went to the mall. I showed him how to speak with women, and he started to communicate, complimenting them, introducing yourself, standing at a distance, making the girl feel comfortable, inviting her to coffee, get a phone number, and all of this. And this thing just started to blow up. Another guy signed up, and I was just going left, right, and center. And this is the time when I realized, okay, I have some value to offer. And then I was like, okay, what do I want to do with the business aspect? And I was like, I want to be a billionaire. So I met Dan Pena. This is the time I had already done around 40 courses on various subjects, and he told me to get into M&A. So from M&A, from being dating coach, I went into mergers and acquisitions. And this is the time where things started to blow up, because now within 2 weeks, I closed a CEO of a $3.5 billion company to be my business partner. I was like, holy fuck. Then I closed a healthcare CEO of a company that was making hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, who has 30 years of experience. It's a major company. This guy was in media everywhere. And these two guys were in media everywhere. Then I closed a top lawyer, then a top corporate finance guy who was a CFO of a $400 million company. And I started to see that all the skills that I had built, including the ones in dating, yoga, marketing, sales, negotiation, leadership, all of it started to come together. And I was operating from a completely different brain. And people could feel the energy. People could feel that I would enter into the room and I would just be able to command this attention, and I was grounded, and I wasn't suffering with fear. I wasn't dealing with any distractions, and I was completely stable, and I was focused. And I started to negotiate with banks and $10 million company, $100 million company, $1 billion companies. And within, I think, 2 weeks span, when I put this team together, after that, within 2 weeks span, I negotiated with over 40 different law firms, including the law firm called DLA Piper, which represented Mark Zuckerberg's opposition in the Facebook case. So that's the level of law firm that I had negotiated with. And I was like, this is completely crazy what I just did. And then while I was negotiating with the banker knew a royal family member, and he said that I can set up a meeting and he might be interested to join your board. And I declined the offer because sometimes the royals can be a little bit challenging to deal with. So I said, forget about it. I'm happy with the board members that I have. And I started to meet these people and establish this contact base in UAE. And I was like, holy fuck, how did this happen? And everything changed. And then from that business, what I learned is that I don't understand financial terms and I need to continue to educate myself. So I read this book called Financial Intelligence, and I didn't know how to negotiate. I had done marketing and sales training, but I didn't know how to negotiate. I studied books on negotiations. I took courses on negotiations. I understood the financial terms, and I just immersed myself in also Dan Pena's content. I watched hundreds and hundreds of videos. I also did a seminar with Tony Robbins, and with every seminar that I did, one skill stacked up on the other. And that allowed me to be in the position I'm in today. And then I realized that in almost all of my businesses, except for the one in M&A, there was only one problem. There were a series of problems, but the major problem came from sales and marketing, but also the habits, also the leadership skills, right? So all of that, built up machine that I have as a mind contributed. And my 12 years ago, the business I wanted to start is now coming to fruition, is because I wanted to share what I know, and share my experience and teach from my experience. And I didn't feel ready to open up my mouth because I didn't feel that I had done anything at that point since that time. So this is the time where I felt that, okay, I'm ready. I have been wanting to start a YouTube channel for a long, long time. Not to be a YouTuber, but just to share what I know. And this last 12 years have been a gathering of experience, a lot of business failures, a lot of success. And finally, there was one guy who came to me and he was like, could you teach me this M&A business that you're in? And I was like, one of my friends asked me, and I was like, okay, fine. So I taught him this. He was my test client, and I didn't plan to teach this at scale because I didn't want a lot of people to know about this. Frankly, I was like, this knowledge, I'm going to keep it private. And so I taught him, and he went about and he brought people in India, some of the top executives in India, chairman of billion-dollar companies and CEOs of billion-dollar companies. He had very similar effect what I had, and I was training him, and he did it faster than me. So I was like, okay, now I feel comfortable. I can go out into the market, charge money, and I can teach this because I have established the value with me, with someone else. And then there was another guy, and this is the last and seventh business that I created that's now a success. Another guy, Braulio, reached out to me on LinkedIn. He was like, could you teach me this? And I was like, okay, I'll teach you. And he went about and brought billion-dollar CEOs on his team as a business partner. And he ended up negotiating a $12 million with a $12 million company. And he had these crazy results. And I was like, okay, now I have value to open up my mouth. I have results in this area and I can now share. And so that's the whole journey of starting several companies, learning and not giving up. I have been through hell in the last 12 years to learn this. A lot of the things I didn't want to do, I didn't want to learn yoga. Let me tell you very honestly, I didn't want to quit alcohol. I didn't want to quit smoking. I didn't want to quit partying. I didn't want to study about negotiation. I didn't like talking about money. I found those people to be boring and they were demonized in the cinema. And I didn't like people who went to the seminars. And I didn't like people who wore suits. And I didn't like going to clubs and bars because I didn't even drink. And there were so many things that I didn't like and didn't want to do that I had to do, but all of it ultimately turned out to be something phenomenal. And now I feel I have something to offer. So I speak on this channel and people are watching. In the last couple of months, I have gained so many followers thanks to you guys, but also the work that I had done over the last 12 years that is now shining through. And so that's what I wanted to share, that this whole thing of entrepreneurship is a process. And what I was going through was education. Because let's face it, there is no entrepreneurship education out there in universities. Universities and schools teach you how to get into employment, but nobody teaches entrepreneurship. How many universities teach about leadership? How many universities teach about raising capital? How many universities teach about marketing and sales? There would be universities that teach these subjects separately, but which university ties it all together? And what was the background of the teachers? Because the material keeps getting updated, trends keep changing, and things are evolving in the business world. So hands-on, real-life experience, the school of hard knocks, as they call it, shapes character. And this is something that I learned, is that I don't want to exchange anything that's not valuable, with anybody. I don't want to trade in anything that's not valuable. I want to make sure what I offer has value, has quality. And now I got to tell you, I'm never late on a business meeting. I'm always on time, by the minute. And it's something I learned in my yoga days. I don't have bad habits and I don't hang around my friends. And all of this I learned from my yoga days. And since then, there have been so many lessons that I learned throughout this. And even in the stories that I shared, you would find many gems. If you watch the video again, you would find many, many lessons there. But I know I can lead now. I understand marketing, I understand sales, I understand negotiation. And now is the time, success. I can see the success, I can feel the success. So that's the lesson, is persistence, mindset, visualization. Because when I met the CEO of $3.5 billion company, I didn't think he would say yes. But because I had visualized it over and over again in my mind, something happened. There was a snap in the programming, and I suddenly said the right thing at the right time, in the right sequence, and he said yes. Something happens to your brain when you visualize. You just tend to take the right actions. So that's another thing I realized when I was building this company, is I started to see that I am in my own way. Because while I was building my healthcare investment company, I would sit down with my chairman, who was a CEO of a $3.5 billion company, and I would just give him all the authority. I would give him all the power. I would just lose power in front of him, and I would almost feel shameful in front of his accomplishments. And I had so many insecurities. I wasn't even able to communicate properly. And I realized that there is so much of a slave programming that I've gone through from the school and college days that, has made me expect small things out of myself and set small goals. And so I started to discover more about social conditioning and mental programming, how it affects business. Because I really didn't think he would say yes, but he did. And that was just a mental block that I had. And I now teach how to remove these mental blocks and propel yourself into action and actually believe in yourself. Because I had those past failures that were kind of screaming in my mind, and they were stopping me, but eventually things turned out to be fantastic. So that's the lessons. Those are the lessons that I learned from starting 7 businesses. Not all of them were successful. Some of them towards the end started to be successful. And that is my story. I'll talk to you soon.